There are over 100 blue plaques in the city of Brighton and Hove, yet only one, this one, green, white and purple plaque. 14 Palmyra Avenue is the former home of Victoria Lydiard. When she died in 1992 at the age of 102, she was the last surviving suffragette. Hence the colours of the driving force of the UK's Votes for Women's movement, the Women's Social and Political Union, being used on her plaque. As well as being a keen suffragist, if that's the correct word, she was also a very big friend of the animals. She became vegetarian at the age of 9 in 1899, which is practically the 19th century, and even at the age of 100 she was bombarding MPs with letters about the conditions of live animals in transport. Truly, you have to say, a proper Brighton person. Today we will look at another proper Brighton person from off of history, but one that doesn't have any sort of plaque. Roll titles. This is the story of a poet, an eccentric, a royal, a trailblazer 100 years ahead of his time. Presented by an idiot wearing a Poundland spider decoration on his head, this is the story of the world's first Goth. History is full of famous Erics, such as Eric Bloodaxe, who was a Viking rather than a rock star, Eric Cartman, who was a cartoon character, and Eric Cantona, who threw sardines at journalists and his feet at francophobes. But perhaps the most and least Eric-y of all, Count Eric Stenbock was born in 1860, a descendant of the Queen of Sweden, and spent much of his life here at Withdean Hall, which was then on the outskirts of Brighton. Whilst at Oxford University, Eric changed his first name to Stanislaus because he thought it sounded cooler, and let's be honest, it does sound cooler. He also changed his religion, going from Lutheran to Catholic to inventing his own religion, a mixture of Christianity, Buddhism and idol worship. Often to be found wearing flowing robes and surrounded by candles, his obsessions with the Gothic, the occult and homoerotic led to him having several slim volumes of poetry and short stories published. The death of his grandfather in 1885 saw him inherit the title of Count, as well as a huge amount of land in what is modern-day Estonia. This just further fueled his eccentricities. He took to wearing a bright green tailored suit with a bright orange shirt, what we would now call the Jonathan Ross look, but which caused something of a stir in the 19th century, even in Brighton. Possibly because he accessorised it with a live snake worn as a scarf. Indeed, his bedroom was full of snakes, salamanders and other lizards. He kept a private zoo, 3 reindeer, a fox and a bear in his garden. When travelling between the UK and his estate in Estonia, he was always accompanied by a dog, a monkey and a life-size doll. He called the doll Le Petit Comte, the little count, and told people to treat it as if it was his son. Indeed, he even went so far as to pay for a private tutor for the doll. Given his behaviour, it's perhaps no surprise to learn that Stenbock was addicted to both alcohol and opium. He died of cirrhosis of the liver on the 26th of April 1895 at Withdean Hall, aged just 35. His final act was to swing at his stepfather, who he hated, with a fire poker. His heart is buried somewhere in Estonia, whilst the rest of him is interred here at Brighton Extramural Cemetery. Apart from a sentence in the Times, Stenbock's death was barely reported in any local or national papers. His grave here in Brighton, number 31259, is untended. His name doesn't feature on the front of any Brighton bus, and there is no plaque for him anywhere, let alone at Withdean Hall, which is now expensive flats. Stenbock hasn't gone completely unremembered, however. The pop singer Mark Almond released several songs based on Stenbock poems a few years ago. The campaign for a proper plaque to commemorate him, not a blue plaque but a black one in the shape of a vampire bat, begins here. Sign the petition. Call the cops. Next week on Fact Me Up, the amazing history of Brighton's police force. It'd be a crime to miss it.